So we'll do the exact same thing we did earlier. We'll ask a few questions here, and then we'll open the questions also to social media, and then we'll open the questions to you later on. Uh, and I'm sorry if I will be asking the question I'm most interested in right now. Professor Briones, do you believe our president is charismatic? Our current president.
Charisma can be inherited. It can be part of, family associations. In Philippine culture, this is very important. Who is his mother? Who is his wife? Who is his lover? Who are his children? And so on. So, in that sense, if you will recall, during the last 2010, was it 2010 elections? You could see how people responded to him as a personification of what his parents stood for. In that sense, maybe we can say it's an extended charisma, it's an associated charisma, but still, it's the kind of charisma that voters respond to.
But do you feel he is charismatic in himself by the standards you set earlier?
At this time, it's difficult to say. Those who avidly adore him in media will answer your question positively. But those who are also watching policies, decisions, and public response to particular decisions may have mixed opinion. Very safe answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Very safe.
I would have preferred to learn from the wisdom of my elders.
I will share my elderly wisdom with you privately.
Slap down by the old lady, okay. Gentlemen.
I'm in too much trouble already.
Gentlemen, do you have mixed feelings about the president? Do you feel that he is charismatic? Let's start with Dr. Magna. Do you feel that our current president has integrity, innovation, and inclusiveness?
Do I repeat my presentation? But speaking about charisma, I think he was able to maintain a very high percentage of approval, 60%, then slowly going down. So I suppose he was loved more than feared. But perhaps the fear factor should also be present. So I think that's where the challenge for most presidents really comes from, the commitment and the strength to really implement difficult decisions in spite of having friends all around.
Dean, what do you think?
I think I agree with Liling that the charisma in the campaign came from the parents, but I think following the explaining why the rating stayed high for very long, I think the charisma of this president is from his not being corrupt. Period. We with no charges of personal corruption and his family's corruption. Not even Cory had that. I mean, Cory, there was always kamag-anak, etc. In terms of wealth and in terms of you have very little of that. I think for President Aquino it's more friends, mga classic, but in terms of but not also in terms of making money out of the government. That's a big thing, I think, for this country. But I'm mixed because there are also, of course, other things that we would have wanted from the president, right?
All right. In terms of, because I particularly remember the very long list of demands you make on the leader you want. You want him to get things done, to be a builder of institutions, to be a servant leader, to inspire the youth, to be charismatic, to have a long view of the future, and hopefully support climate change and federalism. Can this man exist?
Yes, of course.
Have you met this man?
And in the process of searching, and with this, all of these things, I'm a student of politics and political personalities. I just even without sort of a commitment to to engage in the Philippines. I'm just academically interested and reading about that all historically. You have to emerge from that, and you might have qualities that make you ready for it, but you have to come out and challenge. I mean, so I would say now, right now, there's no single person that has all of these things. But in the course of the campaign, in the early days of people making decisions whether they will run or not, I'm actually confident that among the list, the top of mind, as they call it, that we have among all of that, there's a number there, maybe 2 or 3, that might be able to rise up. I'm not sure, because they have to rise up, exactly. They have to be challenged, right? The moment, I mean, just announcing that you will run, you will consider to run, the next day, the pressures are enormous.
The next day, the cases
You
will
know,
land in the
there will be
news.
cases, for sure,
Of course.
filed against you. You know, I mean, that's being prepared probably at some point. You know, there'll be, of course, financiers that will be. You know, there'll be politicians that will be lining up, and you have to decide whether to be. So right there, you already will do that. But I think, I'll be honest, that's why I frame it as the leader for the future, because I actually don't. I think the President Aquino is a relatively good president, but that he's not a leader for the future, because he's a leader from the very beginning. He framed it about 2016, that he's always counting. It's over in 2016. I'm done in 2016. So it's in everything, in all of those issues. It's always about when I leave office. I just want to get things done. You know, that's why the peace process is to end in 2016 and all of this. And many of the mistakes is because of that.
Okay, but as everyone said, President Aquino won with great love and trust, regardless of whether or not that love or trust was inherited or owned. Granted that, how do you feel he performed according to how do you think he performed according to that amount of love and trust? How real was it for the people, and how soon into his presidency did the people begin to see maybe he really didn't own it anyway? I'd like to ask all 3 of you.
Can I?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, if you will recall, as soon as the president was elected, there were expectations of a clear development plan. And it took some years to come out with a development plan which reflected his platform. And it's the same with Yolanda. Yolanda happened in 2013. The estimates as well as the projects were finished in early 2014 with the resignation of the presidential assistant, submitted to the president sometime a few months later, approved finally in October 2014. So those are indicators of, this is why I'm saying that it's not only enough for a president to have charisma. He must also have the savvy to put up a cabinet which will implement these programs and make these dreams into reality, as well as, full cooperation from a legislature, which perhaps it's too much to expect.
The criteria I would use is the criteria that he himself used in the campaign, which is poverty and corruption, right? So I think in poverty, for sure, you have a mixed record. But I think in the end, in terms of structures of poverty, I think we're left with the same problems we had in 2010, 2016. For corruption, it's mixed because huge things happen. I mean, 3 senators are in jail, quite a lot of cases. But I also think it's mixed because there is a perception that it was, there were political filters that were used for these charges. Very important was the decision of the Secretary of Justice not to pursue a 3rd group of charges. Now, that's very, very important. And there's a reason why I emphasize that, not just out of, I want them charged, etc. But if I were the president in the next, or I won't be the president, but if I were working for the next president who wants to pardon all these people that have been charged, right? Oh, there's a very good reason for doing that. You know? Yes, they may be guilty, but there were lots of other people who were guilty, but politically they were spared. So if you want reconciliation in this country, do a blanket pardon. You know, because there were some people who were spared. And that's kind of tragic, right? I mean, when that happens, that's kind of tragic. But I can see that would be the thinking of some people. Not me, but some people.
I'm sure not you, sir. Never accused you of thinking that way. But instead of answering that question, though, I'd like to shoot a different question at you and then follow up to everyone. Because the whole day we've sort of been skirting the idea that there are actually people who have put themselves forward and said, maybe I want to run. Possibly I want to run. So we've set standards of what sort of leader we want. Innovation, charisma, servant leaders. So let's talk about the people on the plate. I think we've heard Professor Monsod's campaign against the presidency of Vice President Binay. But I would like to ask all of you, for example, let's go candidate by candidate. Do you guys feel that Vice President Binay may perhaps, regardless of what's been said today, may perhaps be the leader the Filipinos want? Isn't that fun?
Well,
Was this agreed upon? I thought the rules were...
Rappler takes no responsibility for me.
Patricia.
well, I use a very simple formula, 3 I's: integrity, inclusiveness, and innovation. So let me just focus on inclusiveness. I think Vice President Binay will qualify in inclusiveness. Perhaps in the way he approaches people, he has charisma and he really goes to the masses. One of his main areas of engagement is the issue of overseas Filipino workers. So it has been very successful in his case because when the social weather stations came out with a survey, I think the top 3 reasons why people would approve of a government official, and that's true in the case of Vice President Binay, is his ability to connect with overseas Filipino workers. Perhaps more than connect, it's actually being able to use the issue effectively.
Okay.
Perhaps even without an invitation, he really reaches out. He travels to the overseas Filipino communities.
Let me share this with all of us who are largely based in Manila. While we are talking here, at the time of the last presidential elections, Binay was going around the Visayas and Mindanao and all places and meeting with people. And this is why when you were mentioning, and he has a large block of support in the Visayas and Mindanao. And when you recall the share of Visayas and Mindanao of the budget and the share of investments, of private investments, then you will understand why his going there resonates with many of them. And he's involved in social organizations like Rotary, Sister Cities. Makati is happily adopting many local government units who don't have sufficient funding. What I'm just trying to say is that he has a large reserve of support which he has been building up from the time he ran for vice president. But as to your question, as to my personal opinion about Binay, Patricia, you know, one of the social media denizens commented, because they linked him, they said that Briones is a colleague of Binay. And sabi ng isa, siguro, ano kaya, bakit sila konektado silang dalawa? And then, sabi ng isa naman, ay kasi magkaedad kasi sila. Classmates siguro sila. And of course, he is from the College of Law. I'm from the College of Public Administration. So that's how people are connected. And I have to be very careful because I am not in the Binay camp at all. Although we of course are good friends. including his son, who was my former student. But it's not about the presidency and all that. But, you know, what I'm just saying is probably if you have elections now, Visayas and Mindanao will carry him. That is,
Depending
unless
on,
Duterte.
depending if the other
Yes,
mayor,
yes,
the other mayor will
yes,
run.
yes.
Oh,
If
that
the
should be
other mayor
interesting.
will run, this is why I was telling myself when Duterte made indications that he's interested, sabi ko, mababawasan yun si Binay. Kasi Duterte's,
Mindanao, Visayas.
Mindanao also ang kanyang,
Okay, before we jump to audience questions, and I'm very sorry to the people who are timing downstairs, just very quickly.
Hindi mo papasagutin, thank you.
Ay, hindi, kasi mas mahirap to eh. Pero mabilis lang yung mga sagot. No need to explain. But we can't pretend that these names aren't out there. So, Binay, we don't doubt. His name is there. Duterte has already more or less kind of sort of said he's interested. More or less interested. We know that Rojas is still on the table. We know that Grace Poe has sort of talked about this too. And we know that Miriam Defensor Santiago did say she would like to. It doesn't mean she will. So granting these names, and perhaps you have new ones that I have not heard of, which of these people is the closest approximation of the leader you want? I mean, granting we have a year until 2016 and the possibility of finding someone new is difficult. Because I do remember the people on this stage telling me that we need to stand up for ourselves. We need to look at our candidates and not allow us to be taken in by what's happening. So I feel I need a good example to stand up for myself when I vote.
Speaking as academic, and not as a, but I want to actually talk about Bina as well first, and then I'll talk about what
Go on, sir.
I think. But just to be fair, I think for the diaspora, for what I said, the diaspora, I think for climate change, for peace, Bina is the most prepared. He knows his issues very well. He's thought about them. He can do things. Makati actually has done good things on climate change, on disaster. He knows the NDF, the NPA, the MILF, the MNLF, local government, federalism. He knows that all very well. I would have problems with Binay as leaders for institutions, to build institutions, because I guess it doesn't come from that mold. And, you know, I'll ask you, will you stand up after Binay speak and let's march, you know, and fix the Philippines? So I don't think he would be inspiring young people and all of us. I mean, including because of the clouds of his, of his being corrupt, etc., which I don't know and have no basis for making a judgment about that. That is my segue to what I think my most important. All the other four can actually be learned. The fifth is so important because it's about character, and it's about your charisma combined with the situation that you are facing with. So if you ask me very directly who I think has the most potential to have all five wins, but especially the fifth, based on what I would say Grace Paul would have the most and can grow into it. And I would say Mayor Duterte would have a chance, but he needs to expand his issues beyond federalism and peace and Mindanao. Because no matter how you look at it, even if he gets 100% vote in Mindanao and maybe 50% in Visayas, he still won't win. Yes, but
But sir, the question is not his chance to win.
I know.
It's
But
your choice.
yes, and so for me, someone like Duterte would also have all of this and the potential of all of this. And I really just, on a personal basis, my only question about Duterte is his human rights record. Since I'm a human rights lawyer, that's an important issue for me. He knows that too. I mean, because it's something that I'm very frank about. And to some extent, corruption and human rights for me are single issues, not to vote for a person, but not to vote. It's not a reason why I will vote for a person, but it's a reason not to vote for a person as a single issue.
All right. I'll save you for last. Yes?
Okay, I have a simple criteria, as I told you,
Yes.
integrity, inclusiveness, and innovation. So I haven't really studied everything about the candidates, and I don't know the people behind them, so I actually like Liling Briones' notion that we should know the people behind them, the potential cabinet. Except Binay, I still don't know the potential cabinet, but I think they have already. So I think Binay qualifies in inclusiveness, but not the other two. So Grace po would be integrity and inclusiveness. I don't know yet about innovation because she's always saying she's not prepared. So we have to find out who are the people who will form a potential cabinet. I think we know one person, Senator Chis Escudero, who is a vice president. Maro has integrity. He has to work more on inclusiveness. Perhaps innovation can also be part. So I already have two. And Duterte.
Are you saying they're a tie, Grace and Mar?
I
or
would bring in a third one. Duterte would stand for integrity and inclusiveness, but perhaps lacking a little on innovation. But I think that's still.
So
Davao, lacking in innovation?
you're
Davao?
saying that the man that's been called the
Yeah. So it's still a tie
sir,
for me, but
sir,
I think
the
Tony has a
man who
candidate.
people say has created the death squads of Davao is lacking in innovation because he was pretty innovative, possibly creating the death squads.
Well, I don't like that kind of innovation. That's
Fantastic.
why,
I wasn't talking about that kind of innovation.
So the human rights factor doesn't, or possibility of the human rights factor doesn't.
it is a part. It's part and parcel of a leader for me.
So of all the people you feel maybe have hit the two of your standards, who?
I would say Grace po, Maro Has, and Duterte.
Okay.
But I don't want to exclude
Choose.
Binay. So Binay is the fourth. And once I find out who are the cabinet members, especially if Liling Briones will be part.
I'm not part of his machinery.
Ma'am, these gentlemen, he sort of gave me two, but put one on top, and you sort of gave me maybe 3 or 4. Can you give me one, ma'am, of the 5, who you feel, because the
Will you
question,
kindly repeat your 5 again?
Binay, Duterte, Rojas, Grace Po, Miriam Defensor Santiago, and I apologize for this, I may have missed the name, Ping Lacson.
Ping Lacson. Look at what he did for Yolanda. No budget, no powers at all. He was not even given an office. Look at what he did for PNP. So he would be the stern enforcer type you associate with somebody, with Ramos, who is generally accepted as a very successful president. But then you have to clarify also the human rights thing, although that's already settled by the Supreme Court. Pero that's another matter, what the public thinks of it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how many human rights
But-
questions we
yeah.
have here.
But I want to add.
For me, Patricia, the human rights thing is
Is settled.
non-negotiable.
All right.
Non-negotiable.
I just wanted to say that I didn't talk about Mar. My main concern also Mar is on the 5th, which is which is for me is the most important thing, that to be able to inspire
Okay.
people. I mean, that is a big issue for me.
Okay. I'm really sorry to have made you guys wait. So, who was first? Yes.
Yeah. So this is not necessarily a question, maybe a comment or a suggestion. I think we're preparing for the elections, but the more urgent concern is the filing of the candidacies. So we have PH vote. What if we also launch PH run? Because if the leaders who qualify for the characteristics that we are discussing here will not run for presidency after all, like Cheche Lazaro or something, then we have to...
I support that completely.
We have to encourage these leaders to run, because in the end, if none of these leaders would run, then we're left with very poor choices. Then we may end up not voting at all, if that's the wise thing to do. And the second suggestion is, there's a question a while ago about how to validate the facts about these people. So maybe Rappler can do a series of articles like what you did for Bongbong Marcos, and about all these candidates, presenting the facts, and maybe that is a concrete answer to the question on how we can validate that when we read it on Rappler, we're going to trust it and that it's going to be true about that candidate, and then we weigh those options. So just 2 suggestions.
So let me repeat what he said. When you read it on Rappler, of course you trust it. Thank you. And yes, we will start the Cheche Lazaro campaign.
Yeah, PH run, PH run.
PH Run. Hashtag PH Run. Yeah? We got it. Okay, question from over there.
So good afternoon. I am James Balicer from the University of Santo Tomas, Central Commission on Election. So my question addressed to the panelists is that, do you think it's about time to cause for the amendment of the provision in our Constitution with regard to the qualifications of the President? And if so, what specific qualifications should be added with that matter? So,
No.
Quick answers?
Every person who, under the Constitution and the law, can vote should be able to run for any position with minimum conditions of age, etc., as stated. But anyone in the same, otherwise you put a property, educational, some kind of discriminatory, all of that hasn't worked in the past.
Over here?
Good afternoon. I'll just have some remarks. Kasi yung kanina, sinabi daw that there is a lacking of genuine political parties. So may I ask, who are in the panel right now, does political ideology still exist sa ating government ngayon? Yun lang po, yun tanong ko po.
Who would like to take this?
Well, because ideology speaks about a cultural outlook, worldview. But so, based on the definition of a political party that has a real delineated program of government, I think we don't have those types of parties. That's why there's a need for a political strengthening law.
If I may comment, you might find ideological perspectives among the party list
Yeah.
parties.
I mean,
But not
Akbayan-
necessarily in the leading political parties, because if you take closer look at their ideology, they're essentially the same. The difference is on the personalities who are leading and the dynasties who are associated with these political parties. That's why it's so easy for them to flit from one party to another like butterflies.
Akbayan and Makabayan, I think,
Very clear.
have very clear ideological underpinnings.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Neil Holmes and I'm a graduate of De La Salle University, Dos Marinas. Before I ask my question, I would like to pose this example before the honorable panel, the character of President Barack Obama. Personally, in my opinion, I believe that America re-elected Barack Obama because he did not keep the presidency for himself, neither for his social class, for his ideology, or for his political party, but he kept the presidency for America because he is truly an American and he has been leading America the American way. Meaning, this leader, when he sets out goals, he or she will ensure that he will achieve it. So, considering this example, and personally, I am sick of hearing the same names in our ballots every election. And it appears that in every election, most voters elect mostly the same sort of leaders and thus results to the same system. Do you think, is it high time for the electorates to consider putting technocrats into public office? Those people who are not relatively thick into politics. Personally, I would find President Barack Obama as not relatively thick into politics, considering that he graduated from Harvard Law, he worked his way through the Senate, and then now he has been assuming the position in the Oval Office for almost 2 terms. So, isn't it true also that the technocrats and
Sorry, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but we have a lot of people lined up. Let's get to the question.
yes, isn't it true or more beneficial that if we put great weight in our personal criteria of people to vote, would it be better that we vote those technocrats, and could they be referred to as the next generation of leaders? If not for this upcoming elections for the next elections to come?
I think Barack Obama is a good politician. He's not a technocrat. What we need in this country are good politicians because you need political skills, you need negotiation skills. In fact, Barack Obama faced a lot of challenges with the Congress. We have the same presidential system, so a president should have political skills and negotiation acumen.
As I said a while ago, the chances of a so-called technocrat winning at this particular time, or the so-called modern manager, one columnist asked, are we ready for a manager? Obviously referring to one candidate. We have to recognize that our people, our voters, still respond to candidates who not only touch their minds and give them hopes, but also touch their hearts. Those of you who are fans of the Dune series of fantasy books, there's one quotation there which I like very much. Blindness is not limited to the inability to see. Fanatics are blind in their thoughts, but many leaders are blind in their hearts. And Filipinos look also to the heart to convince them. And this is why I said a perfect response would be to have a very competent cabinet or a competent executive secretary. We saw that in our earlier, in our previous presidents, like Ramos, for example, Magsaysay had Vargas, and so on and so forth, where the executive secretary, in a sense, is made accountable and responsible for the implementations of the decisions of the cabinet and to advise and to screen whatever policy that has to be formulated. And probably this is what we are looking for, because right now, I believe, our people are not ready to let go of their hearts.
All right, last two questions, short questions, one answer from the panel. Go.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Meg Bansalido from DLSU, and this question is for Professor Briones. Hi. So a while ago, you suggested that presidentiables should also announce their potential cabinet members, and which I might agree to, because the performance of these cabinet members will ultimately be felt in LGUs across the country. But however, will this not promote personality politics over like political campaigns that focused on projects or issues, which was reiterated earlier in the other panel? Thank you.
If you will recall, when President Cory Aquino was elected, she created a committee headed by no less than the former chair of the Civil Service Commission. That's the advantage of very old people. They have very long memories. And this committee, headed by Pat Santo Tomas, was supposed to screen and to collect names, qualifications, etc., potential, not only secretaries, because the president signs the appointments of more than 5,000 employees. But since then, that kind of system, that kind of vetting has not been applied and is totally forgotten. And I'm sure your generation does not know about it. That there was a system of identifying. This is why during Marcos's time, you had the Career Executive Service Training Program, the Career Executive Service Board, where potential cabinet members from division level up to director level, up to secretaries have to undergo training in management, in operations, commitment, etc., and that they could be transferred from one office to the other without any problem at all. But then this system has not been continued.
Last question, short and sweet. Gentleman, she needs assistance. All right.
Good afternoon, most honorable members of the panel. I'm Javelin Moya from Colegio de San Juan de Letran. Earlier, you stated about the qualities such as integrity, inclusiveness, and innovation Ladies and gentlemen, I am heartily sorry for giving and stating and asking what seems to be the obvious. Are you blatantly saying that the current administration failed to give this nation the qualities of which you speak of? Thank you very much.
No, that's not the point. Really, it's a president is limited to one term, and so if the president can run, then he should be measured as well on the basis of those three criteria. So I laid down those criteria not to be a counterpoint to the current administration, but to provide a simple way. Of course, there are indicators for that, those three criteria. So it's not really what I mean by that.
Okay, we have a special request from social media. Apparently, our social media doesn't want to speak.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. Hi, I'm Margie from Rappler social media team. We have a question from Twitter. Her name is Kiera Rubilios. We have varied standards and levels of contentment. Can this not hinder our joint aim of having the right leader?
Essentially, she was saying that because people have varying levels of contentment, will it not get in the way of picking a leader? Which I think, of course,
Of course.
explains
Different
itself.
expectations, different.
But at the end of the day, what the majority of the voters vote for. At the end of the day, what the majority of the voters vote for, whether these are both votes, will determine the results of the elections.
Long live democracy.
That's why I said it's the leader we want. Then we start with the leader I want, but you have to talk to each other, share your thoughts, find some way to actually say, this is the leader we want. Otherwise, you don't get the leader you as an individual want.
Okay. Thank you.
And because this is, after all, a campaign to discover who it is, who the leader you want is. So we won't ask for the leader we want yet. I think what's necessary is first to figure out who we want in a leader. And because I think it was terribly unfair to force you to choose among candidates you may or may not possibly like, we'd like to give you the opportunity, may or may not. May or may not. We'd like to give you the opportunity because, as everyone has pointed out, the choices are names we've heard before and they are limited. If you could put a name on that list, is there anyone who exists now, still alive, and did not die in a plane crash? Is there anyone here in this country that you feel is the leader you want and you hope will run for the presidency?
Oh yeah, Lenny Robredo. I would put her there as having all five, and I would put also probably Francis Pangilinan as well out there.
All right. So, Dean Lavinia for Francis Pangilinan. Sir. And Lenny Robredo. So, two on the list from this very brave gentleman.
I also have Lenny Robredo for obvious reasons. But I know Lenny Robredo. Risa Ontiveros and Grace Poe.
All right. If this were an American Idol panel, Lenny Robredo would be in. So, ma'am.
Right now, I can't think of anybody, but there would really be many of them. I would suggest that we go through the list of awardees in good governance in local government. And we have many very effective and dynamic governors, governors and local government executives. But of course, my preference would be from the Visayas and Mindanao because we have long been excluded from national decisions and national leadership.
I think we were taking lesson from that. I think if people from the areas you speak of are anything like you, I don't think they'll allow themselves to be excluded anymore in the next elections. We're told we have one last social media question. Can we hear it from over there? Yes, Margie.
Hi. This one's from Marielle Fangre. We need a leader who will win. At what point do I vote for the lesser evil because who I want won't win?
Ah,
I think we should not vote for leaders because they will win. This is a very common behavior among voters. They will vote whoever is llamado. We vote for who we want to be president, whether he will win or not.
and I think that's a perfect ending to tonight's very interesting interview with these very kind people. And of course, I won't leave you like that. Please give us your final words where I don't nail you to the wall in any way. Please, any of you, go ahead.
Can we look at the print, what we'll post later on, and change our words? and say something safer. Anyway, that's okay. I'm actually at the stage of my life I really don't mind. I actually plan to retire next year. I'm on my last year in my term as a School of Government Dean of Ateneo, and I've actually told my president, who's a very good friend of mine, no possibility of extension. 10 years is enough in a institution, right? But anyway, having said that, no, I mean, I think the future is really up to you. As I said, 50% of the votes is 18 to 34 years old. I mean, and in that the majority is the younger votes are the majority. But as I said, you're not the majority. You yourself are college students, because the majority of that group, that 50%, are actually high school graduates, which makes them a plurality in the election and all. So what I want to suggest is you actually reach out also to your peers in different economic sectors, in different places in the Philippines, and have this common vision of the leader we want.
Do you feel that you have nothing to lose by what you said earlier, or would
Of
you like
course
to change
not.
some answers?
I'm actually voting for Jesse Robredo, but since he's dead, the memory lives on in the 3 I's: integrity, inclusiveness, and innovation. So remember to vote 3 I's. Remember Jesse Robredo: integrity, inclusiveness, innovation.
What I would just like to remind you of, based on our participation in 2 elections, is that even as we are busy with our studies, our researches, our debates, and so on and so forth, there are now groups which are spreading out into the provinces. They're already busy negotiating for victories. You can buy a victory. They have tables of costs. You want to be governor, you want to be mayor. They're now busy training voters how to fill up the forms. They're called operators. And there is a cost. You want to be mayor, you want to be congressman, and maybe you want to be a senator. And it's going on. All the training, it's going on under our nose. And after this forum, for which we are grateful to Rappler, we will go back to what we do, to our schools, to our offices, and so on, hoping that the president that we want will emerge. I said at the beginning, we have to get out of our offices, out of our comfort zones, because those who will select our officials for us have been working already for several years. Whether it will be yung tagalabas, mayroon din silang table of costs, tinitext yun kung magkano, panalo, anong posisyon, konsihal, barangay captain, o mayor, or governor, papanalohin, kung may kalaban, tutumbahin ba o kikidnapin lang. That's one type. There are also the operators who already have updated lists of voters by not only by barangays, but by streets. And it's all computerized. And they're already training, they're already spending in terms of 2016. We are very, very, very late. And this is why, magkaiba kami ni Tony. Tony wants to retire. I am not retiring. I'm going to be 75. I will continue teaching. Thank you.
And I think we can testify we learned a lot from these wonderful people the last few minutes.